There's simply no one like him.
Hello.
I'm the boss.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
That's how the one and only Donald J. Trump walks into a meeting with the world's 7 largest advanced economies and lets them know who's the real center of it all. And he proved it every step of the way. Something just happened on the world stage that the fake news media doesn't want you to see. Something massive. Something that's going to rewrite everything the globalists, the legacy media, and the anti-Trump crowd have been telling you for months. Trump didn't just walk into that G7 summit. He didn't just attend the meeting. He owned it. He dominated it from start to finish. And here's the kicker. Every single world leader there was forced to admit it. Wait until you see this. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, enjoying yet another glorious day in the Trumpian golden age that you made possible back in November 2024. So if you want a front row seat on how you continue to change the world in ways you never even imagined, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Also, as you know, things are moving so fast right now, faster than I can cover them here. I need you to scan the QR code below for my free Patriot Alerts, and I'll fill in everything this channel can every morning straight to your inbox. All right, let's dive right in here. The leaders of the world's most powerful nations, Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Canada, Japan, and the good old US of A, have just gathered in a stunning alpine resort town on the shores of Lake Geneva, France. The setting was breathtaking. The stakes were enormous. And right from the start, Donald J. Trump made absolutely sure that every single person in that room knew exactly who was in charge. President Trump arrived at the G7 carrying one of the most significant geopolitical achievements in decades in his pocket, a preliminary memorandum of understanding to end the U.S.-Iran conflict permanently. 14 points, signed, delivered, and the world is already feeling the results. Under the terms of the MOU, Iran commits to an immediate and permanent halt to military operations on all fronts, including in Lebanon. Iran also commits to never producing nuclear weapons and to neutralizing its entire stockpile of highly enriched uranium through downblending under International Atomic Energy Agency supervision on Iranian soil. And perhaps most importantly for you and for every family filling up their gas tank in America right now, the agreement calls for a permanent toll-free passage for commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. This, of course, after U.S. forces destroyed $1 trillion worth of military buildup over 47 years, rendering Iran basically inert, incapable of projecting power in the region. And as a result, oil prices are already plummeting. The markets are already surging. This is America first in action, and the G7 leaders know it. So when Trump showed up to that summit with his deal in hand, these European leaders who had, keep in mind, had been criticizing him for months, lecturing him, doubting him, ironically, they fell right in line. The G7 joint statement was nothing short of extraordinary. The joint statement describes the agreement as a deal secured, quote, under the strong leadership of President Trump. They mentioned Trump by name and Trump only 3 separate times in that joint statement. Again, let the irony of this moment hit you. The very European leaders who spent months doubting him, criticizing him for not consulting them before military action, saying this is not our war, they're now putting his name in their official communique as the man who made peace happen. Now, here's where it gets even more remarkable, because the Iran deal wasn't the only major win Trump scored at the summit. For over a year, Trump and his European counterparts have been deeply divided over Ukraine, to the point where last year's G7 in Canada ended without any joint statement on the subject. There was no consensus. Frankly, it was a mess. But this year, this summit, completely different story. Trump sat down with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in a one-on-one meeting, their very first direct encounter in over 4 months, and the results were rather stunning. Trump told reporters that he believed Russia should make a deal, that he had spoken with Vladimir Putin on Sunday, describing the conversation as very positive. He said he'd spoken with Zelensky and called it extremely productive. And he told the world he's going to do whatever he can to bring peace. Now, remember, this is part of Trump's strategy to reverse Kissinger here with Russia, okay? He's trying to decouple Russia away from China in a manner comparable to the way Kissinger tried and successfully decoupled China away from Russia. Either way, a principal tenet of American geopolitics is to separate China from Russia, and Trump sees the resolution of the Ukrainian war as an opportunity to do precisely that. But it does appear that all the G7 leaders, with Trump on board, decided to put a bit of pressure on Putin. They issued a unified pledge of unwavering support for Ukraine in its quest to preserve its freedom, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. They agreed to enhance the provision of air defense capabilities, including additional systems, interceptors, and long-range options. And because of Trump's Iran deal reopening the Strait of Hormuz, the G7 agreed that it is now the appropriate moment to implement additional measures targeting Russia's oil and gas sectors with tightened sanctions. In other words, Trump's Iran victory unlocked a cascading diplomatic win on Ukraine as well. And if you can believe it, the wins just kept coming. I'm sure you're all fully aware of how selective coverage and bias framing shape how people see the news before they ever get a full picture. What's presented as neutral reporting often steers perception instead of surfacing all the facts. Millions are realizing that news is broken, and luckily there's a solution that helps you see what's being emphasized, ignored, or spun, and that's ground news. Ground news pulls headlines from over 50,000 news sources and makes it easier to understand what's actually happening. You can see the political bias of each outlet, insights like reliability and outlet ownership, and how coverage breaks down across the spectrum. That's why over 1 million people have downloaded Ground News. Check it out for yourself at ground.news/Steve. My favorite feature is the blind spot feed. It shows you which stories are blowing up on one side of the aisle but barely mentioned on the other. It's the clearest way to see media bias in action. So here it's an example of a story barely getting any traction on the left. It's a story about a Canadian American who helped run a network moving migrants from Canada into New York, earning roughly $1,000 per illegal migrant. The operation was linked to the deaths of 9 people, including 2 children, according to court filings. Of course, the media is ignoring this because it shatters their open borders narrative. Now, the right has their blind spots as well, but now you'll know. With every story, Ground News shows you the entire spectrum of who's reporting from left, right, and center, how reliable each source is, and who owns each outlet. It's everything the corporate press doesn't want you to see. And right now you can get 40% off the Vantage plan, which gives you unlimited access to all the features I personally use for about $5 per month. Just visit ground.news/Steve, click the link in the description, or scan the QR code. That's ground.news/Steve. The meetings at the G7 went on and on. Trump sat down one-on-one with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, their first face-to-face meeting in over 16 months. And by the time it was over, Trump was telling reporters the U.S. is very close to reaching a major trade deal with India, praising Modi as his longtime friend and noting that India is actively investing in American factories and spending heavily inside the United States. But Trump didn't stop there. He also held separate bilateral meetings with the Emir of Qatar and UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, 2 of the most powerful figures in the Gulf, with discussions covering regional security, energy cooperation, the demining of the Strait of Hormuz, and investment partnerships. Remember, this is all part of the rising Abraham Accords peace and prosperity architecture for the Middle East that combines Israeli muscle with Arab money that was brokered and secured by the United States. Iran was the principal impediment to that vision, and that impediment has just been permanently defanged. Trump also met with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, covering the broader Middle East picture. So the full picture is staggering. In just 3 days, Trump closed a framework deal with Iran, broke through on Ukraine, rallied the G7 behind unified sanctions on Russia, held 5 separate bilateral meetings, and attended a gala dinner at the Palace of Versailles, all while somehow finding time to walk into a room and remind the whole world exactly who is running the show. And again, the contrast here with what the legacy media's desperately been trying to convince their dwindling audience couldn't be starker. For years, the globalist media has told you that Trump was destroying America's relationships with its allies, right? That he was isolating the United States on the world stage. That his America First approach was reckless and dangerous. CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, BBC, they said over and over and over again. But look at what actually happened in Evian, France. Trump didn't just influence the meeting, he dominated it. He was literally the center of the G7 world. And every single world leader there, every major world leader, openly credited him by name for delivering peace. Even CNN eventually had to acknowledge it. The world just witnessed something historic. A president who walked onto the global stage, looked the most powerful leaders on earth in the eye and said, "I'm the boss," and proved every single word of it. This is what winning looks like. And that is what you made possible back in November of 2024. So what do you guys think? You're the ones changing the world. I want to hear what you have to say. So give me your comments down below. And as always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button for breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. Love you guys. God bless. Before you go, let me say this. Patriots around the country are winning right now, but you won't see it on the evening news. Every week, I put together the real story of the victories, the momentum, and the proof that the MAGA movement is not slowing down. Scan the QR code to join our newsletter so your weekend starts with the truth, not their narrative.